Yo, yo, yo. This is another episode of the Composition Chronicles of Self-Awareness. And this episode, I wanted to talk about downsizing tiny homes, container homes in the pandemic, and kind of the use of tax returns and stimulus checks. I've been on this journey of downsizing my life in many different ways for the last, maybe like 5 years, but yeah, for sure the last 5 years. Started maybe even before that because I used to be a real heavy pack rat. I'll just save everything, every type of magazine that had a cool design that was free. I just like stacked them up and I would never read them again. I would just have them there for one day, possibly being able to gain some inspiration because that's just the way that I work. I don't know, subconsciously I would store things and one day this is going to serve its purpose. So, I mean, that I started doing that because I started moving a lot. Since I was maybe in elementary school, that was probably the longest that I stayed in one physical location. And then it was time to move. And through that process of moving, I would just get tired of having to move so much stuff, so I would just let stuff go. It really taught me to hold on to the things I really want to hold on to because I just physically and space wise not wanting to pay for storage unit or anything like that, it just caused me to do a lot of downsizing. Continuing on the path of downsizing, I stumbled across sustainable living, alternative ways of living, probably late 2014. Probably it was definitely in my head. I was always in the architecture and different things like that, but probably around late 2014, that was when I had stopped eating meat. That was when a lot of changes started happening for me. That was when I started thinking more and more about like, yeah, I'm tired of paying rent. Yeah, I just want my own spot. And that's when I started to dive a lot more into container homes, earth ships, different ways of being able to use different resources and materials to be able to build yourself a home. Of course, there was the whole land thing that was an issue, but in the process of gaining your land, thus comes the mobile home, even when it comes to campers, makes me think of in this process of downsizing how much space is really needed. I'm finding these different articles. There's one in particular about this couple that's in Dallas that lives in a tiny home community, and they've been living in their tiny home for the last 2 years. It's been over 2 years. They've had it in three different locations, moved it in three different locations. And what I really like about tiny homes is the fact that you can move it. The way that this particular couple, and you can check them out, I think that it is Tiny Living with the Bushes. They have a video on them moving it. And they answered some questions, and they was just all like, took some energy, some preparations, but it was like a day. So imagine instead of paying rent for something that you don't own, imagine just having to pay rent for the lot that you're on. And then their energy bill was only $13. They have everything that they need. And then the price, oh my goodness. So for them, and this was fully loaded, and this is what I'm noticing that people are doing because there's actual tiny home loans that you're able to get. There's fully loaded. They designed it from the ground up, every single thing that they wanted. It cost them $55,000. $55,000. So when I think about, especially during this time, with COVID and everything that's going on, people are not able to pay as far as their rent and different things like that. I just imagine, because I'm thinking about that for myself. I'm just like, I would love to have a tiny home. They pay like and this is the most that they've paid for the lot rent. They pay $500. $500. $500 a month. And then on top of that, they have their $13 energy bill. So this is what I'm thinking. Imagine getting your tax return. Imagine getting your stimulus check. Imagine getting unemployment, because I know some people that did get all of those. And with something that costs for you to own $55,000, even if you were just, you put a big down payment on, imagine your monthly payments and how short it would take for you to be able to own it. So for the price that some people are paying for their apartment or their house to rent, and that's just the rent, that may not be including utilities and things like that, you would probably pay less to drop a down payment and maybe get your down payments to like a couple of $100 a month. On top of that, you pay the lot rent. So let's just say you're paying about $800 a month. 500 of that dollars is going for your lot rent for where you're staying, and 300 of that is going towards you owning and paying off the loan. If you had even if you had or paying off the price for it. And they ended up, with budgeting and everything like that, it's paid off. And they're debt free, I think. It's making me think of the possibility. I came across this article, and I found Tiny Living with the bushes on the article as well. But this particular, so let me look at my history, because what made me want to record this was the fact, I was up and I was looking at, I was just looking at different articles on my Google suggested. Usually that's what I like doing, but this particular time I was just all like, let me go ahead and just, I have the energy, let me go ahead and just record this. So I got, my sources. I'm able to record this while I'm looking at my sources. So the first thing like I came across was shipping containers turned into micro apartments by Containerwerk. Now, this is in Germany. Now, one thing that I've been really wanting to do is here in San Antonio, I want to create container home apartments and hotels. Seeing this particular article and the way that they have it is interesting, because it reminds me a lot of duplexes and townhomes. So it's really cool, because the way that you can do container homes are very dope. And what I've seen, for you to own one fully, like done everything like that, I think there's a company in Austin that does them. It is, to own a 20-footer is like 20,000. For a 40-footer, it's like 22,000. So to own your home, these are the things that I'm thinking about. And with people getting, families, or people that single people that are getting tax returns, $2,000 plus you got the stimulus check. And if we were to continue to get the stimulus checks, you know what I mean? That starts to add up, and then you can own your own location. And my thing is, during this time, I think that it's important to look at the possibilities. Me personally, during this time, me and my family had moved in with my sister. And I'm looking at, just my next move basically. I've been The tiny home really is luring to me, because me as an entrepreneur, me as a creator, like, I mean, it gets me hype right now just thinking about it, because, I wanted to go the camper route. That's all cool. That's all fine and dandy. That mobility is really dope. But the cool thing is, with the fact that I travel, I can, like, legit, when I leave to go somewhere, I can Airbnb my tiny home out. So if I'm gonna be somewhere, I can go ahead and Airbnb it and then, come back. Like I don't have to take the tiny home with me. And I can take the camper with me. That's what's cool about it. But if like the way that I personally move right now in travel, that would suit me best. Because for one, as far as having a tiny home, because for one, if I'm paying $500 a month as far as my rent, and then I'm paying $13 as far as my electricity bill. They personally use a hotspot, and recently I just learned how to use it. Like I got an iPhone. My sister gave me her old iPhone because her daughter had broke it, and the screen was shattered, so I was just sitting on it, and then I finally went and got the screen replaced, and so I've been in this whole like iPhone thing and efficiency because it has this cool thing with tracking your productivity and everything like that. So it has the hotspot on there. And so I thought, I've heard of it and I've definitely used hotspots before, but it didn't click for some reason that, I have a hotspot. So I've been recently using my hotspot. So for me, realistically, me having my own tiny home, paying $500 a month as far as lot rent on something that I own. This is just until I'm able to get my own piece of land. So I'm paying $500 as far as lot rent. This isn't like a property tax where at the end of the month, I have to pay this, big thing or anything like that. This is just getting me in preparation, when I do own my own land. I have the $500 a month as far as the rent, $13 as far as a month for utilities, $50 a month as far as for my phone and hotspot service, to turn my phone into hotspot service. And the fact that even in the tiny home, you can still get internet hooked up like regular internet. That's not even a problem. So let's just say that we were just gonna just still stick to the cell phone. So you got 500 a month for the rent, plus 13 for the utilities, plus 50 for the phone and internet, plus, if it's just me a month, I probably spend like 200. And then what else? We'll just say like with everything that I need for me to be completely comfortable, I just need to that would be like $1,000 a month. That's including every single thing, and having money left over to just move around with. And this is with something that I actually own. This company called Containerwerks turned old shipping containers into 21 micro apartments for visitors to the town of Wortham in Germany. And these look super dope. If you check out Dezen.com, Dezeen.com, it's probably like the most recent article. Take a look at these. Like, this is just as far as on the container home front. So the way that I see it is I want to have my tiny home and then have, rent out as far as like add a couple of tiny home like lots and different things like that, and then get my own lot or get my own land, turn a portion of that into a tiny home lot village, and then have my container home built on there. That's what ultimately I want to do. To do that, that is realistic. That is realistic, and on top of that, I'm creating as far as income for myself by being able to create a space and have other people come and have their tiny home set up. And here's the thing: this is how dope this is. So I saw, and the reason why I thought of this, Again, because let me go down the history of like, where my stuff was going through in these times. So my first thing that I clicked on was the White House would likely approve as far as another round of stimulus checks. Then I went to this article on theconversation.com, and it said archaeology shows how ancient African societies manage pandemics. And so, it goes through how, they would burn places and dead bodies to stop with the spread. And then they would also do move to different locations and different things like that. And they did practice a form of social distancing. And in some places, they even had like little community setups as far as for the people that were sick. So they were just in one area. And so what it was saying was that at the end, it was just saying that Africa's past and the future of pandemics. And it was saying there were multiple long-term implications of pandemics in these communities. Perhaps the most important was that people organized themselves in ways that made it easier to live with diseases, managing them, and at the same time sticking to the basics such as good hygiene, sanitation, and environmental control. Life did not stop because of pandemics. Populations made decisions and choices to live with them. Some of these lessons may be applied to COVID-19, guiding decisions and choices to buffer the vulnerable from the pandemic while allowing economic activity and other aspects of life to continue. As evidence from the past shows, social behavior is the first line of defense against pandemics. It's essential this be considered when planning for the latest post-pandemic future. That made me think even more about the fact of mobility. Imagine if instead of having to completely start over, you're able to move your house. Like when you look at these tiny homes, here's the other article, and this is another actual couple, another Texas couple, and it shows as far as the size of theirs, and they have two dogs. And again, some of these people that are doing this have the works. Like they went super in on design and having like some super dope stuff, but you may not need that. I know I don't. And so with that, I can be able to create more space. And, this is with a specific size. So for this couple, and they have two dogs, two full-size dogs. This couple is living in a 267 square foot tiny home. Right now, it's just me. But I am planning for the future. So this just lets me know when I do get that Mrs. Composition, we can live comfortably. The first couple that I was talking about in the beginning of the video, they've been together since middle school. The husband, he's over 6 feet tall. They're comfortable in this. This couple, they're living in a 267 square foot tiny home with two dogs, and they've been in there since December of 2018. The tiny home features a kitchen, many windows that offer natural light, a lofted bedroom, and even a sauna. I looked at their bathroom and I'm like, yo, that is fire. Now, for me, what I would need is I would need to have a shower bathtub combination. I need to have a bathtub. I do. I do. I do. That is my if that was the one thing that I would splurge on, is to have a fire bathroom so I can be able to soak in the tub. I have to. That is my thing. And making sure that it's well ventilated so that way, the we decrease as far as having mold and everything like that. But they're living in a 267 square foot tiny home, and this was an insider.com article. With me, I'm sitting up here like trying to think about plans as far as how to be smart about this. I'm about to be 30 in less than a year. Next January I will be 30. And I've rented in some way, shape, or form or paid for rent in one way, shape, or form since I was 19. So that's 10 full years. Let's just say on average, my rent was $600. We'll say 600 times 12 months times 10 years. This, now let me tell you, this is realistically speaking, like realistically speaking, that is, that's having to deal with, really cheap rent for a period of time. And that's also having to deal with more expensive rent for a period of time. So that 600 a month, like on average, that realistically is about spot on. And that still is probably less than what it actually was. So doing $600 a month times 12 months times 10 years, that is $72,000 that I've spent on rent that I'm not getting back. That's not including utilities. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not including utilities. So the fact that you can have a tiny home and you can have your little $13 a month utility bill, and you can be on the verge of even getting some solar panels or other ways of using electricity. I've been looking up some ways where they've been using magnets and like copper and other different things. It's wild. For me, with something like a pandemic and me owning my own spot, owning my own tiny home, getting a $1,200 a month stimulus check, I would be golden, and I would still have $200 left to just save or to invest in my business. And that's not including the money from a business. So, like I'm thinking at myself, like, man, having a tiny home during this time, being able to strictly focus on what I need to do to build up my business and my own like self, as far as like nurturing myself, making sure that I'm doing everything that I need to do to stay healthy and to fortify, my immune system, build that up and everything like that. That would make me feel so much more at ease as far as being able to at least navigate through uncertainty. If push came to shove and I had to move locations, like, okay, stuff is hot here, like, cases are rising or whatever, different things like that. For my safety, I can go and move my house to a different city or a different state, throw it in the back of the truck, roll out, and be good. That is what it is that I'm looking at. And even not even just even investing in that. That's what it is that I'm looking into. To be able to go from that. For me, I see the 267 and two people fit in that. I want to see how big I need it to be, because like right now, I'm in a hotel and the rooms, I need to check online to check the square footage. But currently in this room, I have, there's a bathroom that has a full-fledged sink, three mirrors. It has a shower and bathtub combination toilet that's in there. It's got, the living room basically area. It has a closet and the bed. It's got the desk. It's got the dresser with the TV. And this is a king size bed. It's got the AC unit, the window, another chair to chill at. And this is good. All I would need is just my kitchen. Within that, I feel like the dining room area would kind of infuse with the kitchen into this living room, dining room area. But even with that, with the tiny homes, it's like there's this aspect of the top storage of having the ladder and being able to, use the ceiling and just maximize what your storage. realistically, I think for 300 by 300 or 350 by 350, that may be all that I need. And have that tiny home, and that would be golden. It makes me so excited because that's what I wanted I wanted to go, and maybe it might be baby steps. Maybe it might be a camper into a tiny home, into a container home. Even if so, to be able to have my own, let's just say that's like the next 10-year process. For me, let's just say that I want to set a goal for myself that at the end of this decade, I want to be able to have my own land with a container home and be able to have my tiny home community that I'm able to charge as far as for a lot rent and have my garden set up, have Gardopia Garden, shout out to them, have them come out and help me get it set up. Let's just, yeah, like that being the goal. So within that, it might go from, me having my camper and then me going from the camper to tiny home. And then from the tiny home, being able to get me a lot to be able to have that tiny home on while I get my container home built. And then have my container home built and then get everything set up to be able to have everyone to be able to have electricity and to set up, their water and everything like that. And heck, I could probably even win by even offer like me having the internet service and it being a part of the lot rent. There's that possibility. So, within that, I'm glad that I recorded this because that really sounds like a dope, realistic goal. Because if you mean to tell me that I spent just on rent alone within this past decade, $72,000, with that money alone, I could have literally had the tiny home paid for, had me a piece of land and be set. During this time, I would just have to pay, the lot rent, everything like that. I would be set, so that is a lot of what it is that I'm looking at during these times. I'm looking at what to be. When me and my friend Kenya went to Japan, the whole idea as far as stackable houses and different things like that, this time is showing us we've been doing this for ages. We've been doing this for ages, and there is, I'm thinking that there's something that is missing as far as like, and I feel like the tiny home, this is getting into it. I think that the tiny home on wheels, that was ideal. Like I think about the traveling, people that had the wagon and they had all their stuff on the wagon and everything like that, and they had the horse and different things like that. We're in 2020. You can put that in the back of your truck and go to the next place on the road. It's, oh man, I'm too hyped. Like I'm too hyped. But that's a lot of, where my mindset is during this time. Getting more stimulus checks, like for me, honestly, that's what I'm trying to invest in. A permanent home. If I can sit up there and get a camper with this stimulus money, and then I just have that in the in the back of my sister's house. And then from there I can be working on how to get my tiny home made. Bro, that's what I'm looking at. That is some of the stuff that I'm thinking of doing that. Now I know that my situation is not everyone's situation. There's people with families. They have tiny homes for families. I just saw this article and it was a family of five living in a tiny home comfortably. But see, the thing is that none of these steps are permanent. That's why I'm looking at both the tiny home and the container homes. Because the container homes, you can have literally, honestly, if you had two 40-footers side by side next to each other, you're good. That's a lot. Like, that's literally like a legit house. You can go as crazy as you want with the design. I've seen all different types. You own that. So these shipping containers, now again, you're paying for labor, but if you're learning or partially doing yourself, and then maybe you're getting other people, like there's different ways to do it. Or you could just straight up get it bought and created and, sent to you. Like they go on Amazon, they have a $16,000, $3,000 shipping. Like it exists. Man, that's what I'm looking at. Just these alternate ways of not having to be in the hole with things, having something that's going to stick and last through some time. And something that if even if you wanted to go back to an actual house or anything like that, guess what? This is something that you can Airbnb out. This is something that you can rent out. All of these are possibilities. Legit, this is what I'm trying to do, and I'm saying it over and over because like I want the opportunity and to manifest that into being. I want to be able to get a camper, from the camper be able to get a tiny home, from the tiny home, or yeah, so camper and truck. So camper and truck and tiny home. And see, I could rent out the camper. That's gonna be like my first little residual income because it's like it's going. Oh, that's good. I'm getting hype. Okay, so it's the camper and the truck and the tiny home, the truck and the tiny home on land. Honestly, at that point, I can go ahead and set up to have the tiny home community because I'll be someone in the community as well, and go ahead and get that set up. And that can help fund to get my container home actually built on my land. See, I'm that's the plan. That's the plan. I would be putting that on paper and I would be seeing how to get all of that done. So, hey, if you are a tiny home company, or you create campers, or you create container homes, or you are an architect and you design these things, hit me up. I want to interview you because I think that this is just too fascinating. I've been on it for years, and it's just this might have been like the clarity that I needed to just be able to just look as far as a clear, direction towards something. I think that's really dope. So, hey, if you live in if you live in any of these things, hit me up. I want to interview you. I think that this is just so dope, and more people just need to see this alternate way of living. We started getting into like this minimalistic, living and things like that, but I personally don't need a lot. And when I want to have, more and different things like that, these things exist. So hey, if you create or design or have a camper, container home, or tiny home, hit me up, email me at goldendabtroll@gmail.com. That's GOLDENDABTROLL at gmail.com. I want to interview you. Yeah. All right. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Graffiti the Mind Son, TikTok Golden Dab Troll, and that's Graffiti the Mind Son SON. Single face mask on all major music streaming services. Make sure to add this podcast to your playlist. Dabtroll.com, the Composition Wellness Solutions. That's my personal store. I have, wellness and health services such as tarot guidance, readings, and I have CBD products. So hit me up. Again, this is Mr. Composition, the MC that writes fiction. This is Chronicles of Self Awareness. Peace.